Let's get all sorted. I'm James.
And I'm Jeff. In a landmark episode of All Sorted, we're talking Lego architecture.
Hello, Jeff.
Hey, James.
So for listeners on this episode, if you're looking for notes or anything, check the description and we'll put something up on the website about this. And
What's that website again?
Let me see here. It's been a while, Jeff.
It's BreakingDads.com.
.eu. It's .com?
.com.
.com. Head over to BreakingDads.com and they can also find you over on Twitter.
I am at Still Sorting.
At still? Yes, you are.
Yeah.
I always.
Did you forget how Twitter works?
I forget how Twitter works.
Yeah.
You're hashtag Jeff Sorting.
We're glad you're listening. Thank you very much for downloading the episode. We'd love to have more people listening. So please, we are going to send you on a special mission to...
What is it this time?
I think if you could create a banner that you hang from the tallest building in your city.
Sounds safe.
Advertising All Sorted.
You go again about environmental stuff or political things, but really I think a Lego episode is far more...
I think a Lego podcast is what the world needs right now.
I think so.
Well, James, if we're going to talk about Lego architecture, we really have to talk about one man in particular.
I think it's Frank Lloyd Wright.
And we'll mention him. Don't worry. We'll
right.
mention him. But before we get to Frank Lloyd Wright, and I think more important to the world of Lego architecture, we definitely need to talk about Adam Reed Tucker.
Ah, yes.
So Adam Reed Tucker is, I find this story fascinating.
It is.
Personally. This is a man who created a Lego theme out of thin air.
He sounds like a wizard.
In a way, he is a wizard.
They describe him as an architectural artist, so he is a wizard of sorts.
A brick wizard, as it were. If that wasn't a terrible sentence, but it was. But I said it, and I'm going to stand by it. He's a brick wizard.
Brick wizard.
And he had an interesting road to the world of Lego. He had his own architectural company. And in 2006, when the economy said, no, you don't need to work anymore.
We don't need buildings.
Yeah, nobody's buying things anymore. There's more than enough empty buildings for everybody. Don't worry about it. His firm went under. And from there, he had to move back home. He's living in his parents' basement, doesn't know what to do with himself. He doesn't have a lot of money. Ends up going to a Toys R Us, clearing out a shelf of Lego to take home because he just wanted to build stuff. He doesn't get to build stuff anymore. And with those Legos... Oh, wait, did I just say Legos?
You did. You know what? I think
Holy cow.
It was some of the source material you were reading had egregious use of Legos.
So many Legos.
There was, I think, 3 in one paragraph. And I was like,
My OCD was just being fired off like crazy. And now...
Shrill sound.
I apologize profusely.
Wow.
Yes.
I'll slap you later.
If it makes you feel better, my son will listen to this episode and he will never, ever, ever let me forget that I said Legos in public.
I will not edit that out. Let's move on.
I don't know if I can.
He's sweating. He's faint. I may need to call an ambulance here.
With these Lego sets that he bought, he set about building a couple interesting models. One was Mr. Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water in miniature Lego form. The other one wasn't, I guess technically compared to a skyscraper, it's miniature form, but he built an 8-foot model of One World Trade Center.
Yeah. Not just to show what the building looked like, but to show I think it was a cutaway on one side, wasn't there? So it's to show structurally the building, which helps explain why the building fell down, which that astounds me. I think that was the most interesting. I was like, whoa, okay, that is truly architectural artist brick wizardry. Yeah,
that's combining a lot of things in one build. And it must have been very impressive because Lego saw this model and they said, this is a man we need to know.
Yeah.
So from there, he became a Lego certified professional, which I don't think we've ever talked about. A little bit we've talked about.
We've touched on.
Yeah, we're getting up to too many episodes now.
I can't even... At some point, we should talk more about that as a specific thing. But yeah, he's so he was given a wizard's hat, and there's a ceremony, I think.
I believe that's what happened. Yeah. But it did allow him to produce small quantities of Lego sets and market them.
Yeah.
And so he thought this idea of Lego architecture, which would be small builds of buildings. I'm really good at podcasting. But small builds that adults would build, no play features whatsoever, just a cool building that you can place on a desk and show people that you are a worldly person who enjoys architecture.
In hyper stylized form.
Yes, a minimalistic,
Yeah.
stylized form. So he put together a couple of sets, sold them locally in the Chicago area. It went really well, and Lego said, yes, we want in on this business. Let's do it.
Yeah. And yeah, it's amazing. There's something about that local recognition. It's like there's a series of good night books for different cities. People love recognizing their city. I imagine they must have flown out the back of his rented truck
I
or
thought
however he moved these things around.
I thought you were going to bring up Monopoly and USAopoly's Monopoly on Monopoly.
Yet another good reference that would be totally apt.
Some would have said it would have been better, but whatever. I mean, I'm not sitting here judging
I don't know
you.
why I was thinking of children's board books. I have no idea why. But yeah, that idea of like, hey, my city, that's my thing. That's the thing I see all the time. And it's funny how we have that. We just like that connection that we get from that. And I can see how that must have been a really successful little venture for him.
Yeah, it had to have been because Lego said, let's do it.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. So I love this story that there was a man who went from unemployment
Yeah.
to creating a Lego line in 2 years.
That's bananas.
So in 2008, Lego released the first official Lego architecture sets. And we had Sears Tower and the John Hancock Center and the Empire State Building. I'm trying to remember what that was the whole first wave, right?
Yeah, I think
Yes.
so. Yeah.
And I mean, it makes sense that Sears Tower, Chicago,
Yeah.
makes sense. John Hancock Center,
Chicago. Yeah.
Empire State Building, the most famous skyscraper in the world.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much. And then they broadened it out. They hit Seattle. They hit the Space Needle. They went back to New York because you can't have enough. They did the Guggenheim.
There's architecture in New York? You'd think people would talk about it.
Nothing in New York.
Yeah.
It's a village practically. You got, falling water. You got to do it again. You got to get a 800 piece falling water because that's plausible.
Yeah.
And then you just you keep on moving.
Well, let's back up because I think so that covers 2008 and 2009.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a lot of learning that happens in that.
For sure.
Few first sets. Like I think we built, I think my son received the Guggenheim. Mm-hmm. So the first Guggenheim, we built that one and we got it. My brother went to New York and brought that back for my son as a gift. And my brother, incidentally, is an architect. So he was very excited. He was like, oh, look at this. So we sat and built that. And you open that up and it's the black lined insert and the beautiful booklet. It's the total high end. It doesn't speak to children. It is like, here's a fine wine that you purchased. Here's a block of aged cheese. It's like it's delectable.
Yes, and at $40 for 208 parts, tiny parts.
It better be.
It's basically it's if Apple made Lego sets.
Absolutely.
This is the kind of thing it would be. All great packaging.
That is what I remember thinking. That it was like opening the first time you opened like an iPod package. And you go, whoa, I've never seen a box like this. Look at the way the box just opens and it's just magical inside. That's exactly what this was like. It was like very, whoa, this isn't Lego. It was like they're standing apart in some way.
Yeah, and then very clear it's not aimed towards a child.
No.
Yeah.
And we built it. It was, we struggled. It was 208. No, it was a really quick little duk. And then we looked at it and we both went, yeah, well, it does look like the Guggenheim and it is really representative and it's a very good little micro build. And I think at that time period, I don't know if micro builds had blown up in the same way that they have since. Like, I can't really remember, but like you look at Flickr now and like the micro builds that people do blow my mind. I do not have that imagination. Was this kind of now, it looks very dated. In hindsight, it doesn't look impressive now. And it's hard to put my brain back in 2008.
Definitely those first waves were basic.
Yeah, that's a wave. I mean, that was looking back. I didn't want to be like, I wasn't trying to be rude about it, but I was like, wow, these don't look that good. But it's just kind of in comparison to what kind of
intent
afterward.
Yeah, I think the intent was to be minimalistic, stylized representation.
Was inventing a genre.
Yeah. Again, they were building something that a professional would put on their desk.
Exactly.
To go, look at me, I am a professional. I like buildings.
We do know an architect who was he was starting right away. As soon as these came out, he was vacuuming them up. He loved them, has them all over his workspace. He adores these things. So they definitely knew their market. They hit it very well.
For sure. But like you said, they were relatively simple.
Yeah.
So that took us up to Falling Water in 2009.
Yeah.
And I think Falling Water at 811
That's
pieces.
stepping it up.
Yeah. And they're like, hey, we can charge $1,000 for, or $100, I mean, 1,000. I'm thinking of 2018 prices. I'd say you can see the difference in that build.
Yeah, I think so. There's this like more, I don't know if you use it, articulation, like there's more going on.
More detail for sure.
Yeah, more detail.
Yeah.
Still very monochromatic and kind of, it screams minimalism. Like it definitely doesn't scream, hey, get your minifigures out. Have a little playtime over here.
No, this is pure.
No.
If you recognize this, you're in the club.
If you put this on the same shelf as that yellow and red thing, I'm leaving. That's what this says. It's just not going to share space with other.
Right. Like the Yellow Castle, the classic Yellow Castle is a monochromatic build from the old days.
Yeah.
Definitely not in the same space.
No, they're definitely not. Yeah, no, this one would gently and quietly in the middle of the night push your other sets off the shelf. Which is be like, I'm sorry, I can't do this.
So I think they hit a new standard with Falling Water.
Yeah.
And they obviously liked where they're at because the following year, 2010, they released The White House. It's by the way, Americans, you're welcome for your current White House.
Right. Oh, right. Because we burned it down.
Yeah, we burned it down. Yeah.
Jeff and I.
Well,
Jeff and I's not even my forebears because we weren't in this country at that time.
No, we weren't at all.
So.
My mom's British, though, so
okay.
Maybe some of her forebears were involved. I think we would have known, though.
There would have been like every time a child was born, there would have been some high-fiving that, hey, we did something cool.
I don't know if that's a pride thing.
I don't know,
or
actually.
not.
I don't know how Canadians feel about that, honestly. We joke about it, but I think it's more of a...
Canadians haven't won a lot of battles.
It's like we pantsed America at one point. I think that's how we kind of feel about it. And it's kind of more of a ha-ha.
Right.
And then
we pantsed them, but they were like...
economically overtook us.
They were like those old milk ads where the kid gets bullied, but he's like, but I'm drinking milk, and then grows up to be like a football star. That is basically the relationship from then on.
Yeah.
But anyway, you're welcome for your current White House. If you like the looks of it,
that's
know. And that was the only set in 2010, and now we're up to 560 pieces. I think they're hitting a good level of fine line between minimalism and realism.
The next few, though, they dropped it down. They went Rockefeller Center at 240 pieces and the Burj Khalifa at 208 pieces. And those are half the size. And they kind of went back to that, like the White House, I don't know, it felt, even at a glance when you squint and look at it, it doesn't have that same, what is that color? I can't even. What is the color of these?
That's your brick yellow.
Is that all that is?
Yeah.
It's just a photo. It's my eyes. My old eyes, Jeff.
It might be your old eyes.
They're not exciting. The White House had a little bit more panache to it. And then they kind of kept... They sort of go back and forth between doing bigger sets and then some smaller ones. Some bigger ones and some smaller ones.
I think they're hitting their price points, right? Because in 2011, you had your Rockefeller Center, you had your Burj Khalifa, you had your Farnsworth House. So, you had your Robbie House, which I love. This might be my favorite. You had your Brandenburg Gate. I can read words that are written in front of me. So piece count wise, they went from because they had the reissue for the Willis Tower, which was just an update on the nameplate from the Sears Tower. Yeah, I mean that was a $20 set, and then you had your $25 Burj Khalifa. $40 for Rockefeller Center, $60 Farnsworth House. Wow, really good at words today. But your Robbie House, now we're at $22.76.
Yeah. That's throwing it down.
Yeah, and yet another Frank Lloyd Wright.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really like this one. It's there's just something about the way they did the brickwork.
Yeah, it's that. It looks elegant, but not. It's the coloring. It maintains some of its. I don't know. It stands out. It's part of it. I think when you scroll through and look at a lot of the early stuff, this one kind of jumps out at you a bit more.
For sure.
Yeah, and it's interesting though. It's definitely Chicago, New York, Chicago, New York. And then they start really going, okay, I think we're ready to go a little bit. They start dabbling in the global. They start hitting
Well-
architecture that's not just great, historical pieces, but stuff, let's get a little bit more contemporaneous here.
I think also, so Brandenburg Gate is Germany. Germany's the number one market for Lego.
Right.
So I'm sure that they were thinking like, hey, maybe we should throw our biggest market at the time a bone. The biggest market in Europe, for sure.
Yeah.
And then 2012 hit, and they're hitting the big landmarks
They are.
that are out there.
This isn't like obscure architectural masterpieces that architects would nod at.
Yeah.
This is almost more tourist pieces.
Like if I said, hey, James, name a building in Australia.
Right.
What's the one building you're going to name?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a Sydney Opera House for those of you out there.
But yeah, it's true. Like you look at any of the landmarks they've done recently. Yeah, you're like, okay, yeah, that's what you think of when you think of that place.
Yeah, if you think of London, Big Ben, for sure.
Yeah.
If you think of France, I actually don't know if you want to take a crack on the saying it with a French accent.
And I do not. We might be Canadian, but
Villa Savoy. I'm going to go with that.
yeah.
Savoy?
That's not the one. No, I don't know if I would have thought of that one.
No, I don't think I would have. Beautiful, though, with all of its white windows.
But I guess if you're going to, I guess that one's a Corbusier. So they're like, if we're going to pick a French architect, that's the one you're going to pick. So I guess they're trying to find this weird thing of like big symbolic buildings, but also like to the country, you've Corbusier.
And I think, again, their marketing is clearly towards professionals
Yeah.
who have big coffee table books with architecture.
That's true.
Yeah.
Adjust their giant eyeglasses and
Yes.
nod knowingly.
Yeah,
Yes.
because I am not that person. So I would not. Corbusier, is that what you're saying? The name's one?
I think that's the...
Yeah, I've never heard of this person before because this is how I deal with architecture. I go, that building's pretty.
That one's got bricks.
Yeah.
That
I like the way they did the windows there.
Those rocks are nice.
Yeah. That's more my style of architecture.
It's mostly, really big, well-known buildings, and they're not getting totally architecturally nerdy on this stuff. Like, they're not picking, what is the one they have for Tokyo? Is that a Frank
Or
Lloyd
for
Wright?
Korea. Are you talking the
The
Sungnyun?
Imperial Hotel. Yeah, that's a Frank Lloyd Wright.
Oh, yeah, that is, yeah.
Yeah, so instead of, picking a very renowned Japanese architect and to be representative of Tokyo, no, let's go with the Frank Lloyd Wright one. It's very American.
I think with this whole theme, they said, hey, if you're going to pick an architect,
Yeah,
you could do worse than Frank Lloyd Wright.
I guess.
But don't get ahead. Don't get ahead of the program.
I'm sorry.
Come on now. We're still in 2012. I think
Whoa.
2012 was a good year in that it was very eclectic. None of the buildings look like each other, which is nice because the last one is the Korean building, Sungnyun.
We are so sorry.
Yeah, well, I got that very wrong. I tried to say it fast and with authority, and that was how it came out. But definitely, it looks Korean.
I was looking to see if the Wikipedia had a good pronunciation, and it just give it in Korean, and I don't read Korean either. So we're sorry.
We apologize. Beautiful building.
Yeah.
Looks nothing like any of the other sets that were released in 2012. So
No.
they kind of nailed that. And then in 2013, they said, hey, let's go back to going really big again. Because 2012, they didn't really go anything above 660 pieces. Most were in that 300 range. But in 2013, they did Leaning Tower of Pisa, which is, I don't know, I think they nailed that one. It's leaning. It's a tower. It's got all the little windows I remember from all the cartoons that took place on the Leaning Tower of Pisa when I was a child. I'm specifically thinking of an Alvin and the Chipmunks episode. If anyone has a clip of that episode that they can send me on Twitter, I'm at Still Sorting. I'd like to see that again.
Oh, that's funny. I think that's your reference point. That's good.
Yeah. I'd say most of my U.S. history I learned, or any world history I learned from Alvin and the Chipmunks. Is that a problem?
If it didn't appear in a cartoon, I don't know.
But again, that was their small one that year. Imperial Hotel, which you were talking about before.
Yeah.
1,188 pieces,
Yeah.
$130 price point. Sure, makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, I think that's right in their butter zone between detail and minimalism.
Yeah, it doesn't have that same feel totally micro build, but it's, I think that's the scale I like right there. Mm-hmm. I think when you get too small, some of it loses something for me, but yeah, that's a nice size.
They also had the United Nations headquarters, which I get as a landmark. It's really boring, isn't it?
I think in real life, it probably is also really boring. Yeah, no, it is on all the little the knobs.
Yeah, I think if they could have created mini flags for all of the countries,
Yeah.
that would have been awesome. Although then a lot of the countries would have complained about not
Well,
having
that's
their
the thing.
flag.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a 10-to-1 ratio here.
Yeah. But overall, it's like, oh yeah, it's that rectangle by those other rectangles. One of the rectangles is tall and has lots of windows.
You know, and what's funny is that in looking at these, it must have been so. I think what it was his rule of thumb is if you look at a build, from 10 feet away and you can't tell if it's that is made out of Lego, then he succeeded. I think with some of these, that is the hard part of like recognizing how much work must have went into honing and simplifying down form until he felt that he captured the essence of something without getting too complicated or without sacrificing anything. As much as I would sometimes joke about some of these things, I can't even fathom trying to from scratch. If someone just said, hey, make that building, here's a brick. Like, I couldn't do this. So I have the utmost respect when I look at some of these. I'm like, yeah, like the UN. I'm like, okay, now I wouldn't have thought of those solutions to those problems. Mm-hmm. That's what I think is the coolest, is when some of them you don't see as much of that problem solving. But I think when the problem solving is really apparent, you're like, wow, that's a cool workaround, or that's a cool idea. Those are the best ones for me.
Yeah, none of them you look at and go, nah, it doesn't look like it. If you know the building in real life, you know what it is.
Exactly.
You don't need the nameplate. I think the last one the last set in 2013, the Marina Bay Sands, gorgeous. I think it's one they nailed it. 2013 also saw the Architecture Studio get released. This is a set I've almost bought 100 times.
I can see why.
It's got so much beautiful white Lego and translucent Lego.
Yeah, I know. There's something about that set.
And it's one of those possibility sets.
Yes.
Like it's just, you could do so much with it.
That must be what it is. Because I know I've had the same thought. I've looked at it and went, oh, like part of me is like, I need that. I don't know. And I think you nailed it. I see possibilities. I see myself failing terribly as a Lego architect. See, possibility of horrible things I'll build. Look at this, Jeff. What is that, James?
Because I'm not really an architecture guy.
Yeah.
Like in passing, I look at it and I go, oh, that would be a beautiful Fortress of Solitude starter set.
Yeah.
To build a big, massive Fortress of Solitude for Superman.
That would be cool.
In my Lego city.
That's very good.
Yeah.
That's utilizing it appropriately.
Yeah, white and translucent, it'll be fantastic.
It would be.
So that was the end of 2013. In 2014, the Eiffel Tower. I don't know about this one. This is a small Eiffel Tower, 321 pieces.
I think I've said this one before. The Eiffel Tower is one, and this is, I apologize to everyone in advance. This is one of those pieces of architecture I've stood underneath, and my wife and I looked at each other and went, should we go up to the top? And we both looked at each other and went, nah. And we took a bus back. I was like, wow, this is something, but I don't know. It actually felt less impressive than I thought it would be. And that's a terrible thing to say, but Paris has some beautiful architecture, and honestly, some of it I felt made the Eiffel Tower seem kind of And so I feel that way about it in Lego form.
I would say the Eiffel Tower is one of those buildings that, I mean, even when it was built, it was considered an eyesore within the city of Paris.
I could see that.
It's gotten really good press over the years.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where
it's all about, it's like what, you know, it's a steal. Like, it's just about form. It's like, look at this amazing thing we did with stuff.
It can be impressive without being beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think we've been conditioned to believe it is also beautiful.
Yeah.
And part of it is the
romance,
setting around it.
That's right. Exactly. Yes. It's come to represent something bigger than itself. Freedom and romance. Smooches.
So obviously a miniature version of that. Great idea.
Yeah. Put that on your desk.
Yeah.
There's just smooches happening everywhere. Smooching your Lego set. That's all that's happening there.
Wait, are you making out with the Lego?
You probably.
Okay.
You probably are.
I don't know if you're doing it right. Let's move on to the Trevi Fountain, which, again, this one I've had in my hands more than once to purchase as well. There's just something about this one. I don't know if it's the microfigs.
Yeah, that's it, man. You take those out, it's just not the same. It's the statues in the water.
The water, they've done it beautiful. It looks like it's in motion. It's in my mind.
It is lovely.
Yeah.
No, I really do like this.
Elegant, clean, beautiful. That was 2014.
You know, it's like with the UN one, having the translucent pieces there kind of adds, it just adds some differentiation to it. It's easy on the eyes.
Right.
It's not so,
White on white on white.
yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Because you look at the Lincoln Memorial, and it looks like the Lincoln Memorial.
Yeah.
But it's also, that's a lot of white.
That's a lot of white. It says about architecturally style wise, like sticking to classical buildings, like or neoclassical buildings that have like columns and lots of details, as opposed to sticking to the modernist stuff. Thinking about the Japanese stuff, if you pick Japanese modernist pieces, it'd be a big white cube. You know, like there's a lot of like modern architecture can be kind of stark, and so I guess it made sense they picked not just for recognition, but also like stylistically. Stuff that looks a little more flamboyant, a little bit more of what people think of when they think of architecture.
For sure.
I think Frank Lloyd Wright is almost like a line in the sand. It's like, whoa, okay, that's, it's like Picasso. That's as far in the modern times that people want to go. Whoa, whoa, whoa. No, none of this Jackson Pollock stuff. Yeah, anything before about the 1920s, I'm just not comfortable with. Or after the 1920s.
Yeah, that's...
And I think architecture might be the same way in some ways. It's either it's beautiful and made of glass, or it exists in this dead gray zone that people don't want to acknowledge of like brutalism and like just these minimalist styles that are not the easiest.
But it's a pendulum, right? Like it'll go back to another Gothic Renaissance or Romantic. It's going to. It always does. All right. Well, continuing in 2015.
I'm all about. I'm tired. It's all about digressions.
So, listeners, which one of us knows more about architecture? Do you think?
I know nothing about architecture.
I'm like, there's modern architecture.
No, Jeff.
Well, I have the next one is the Flatiron Building, which I have a confession to make. My entire life, like literally before we started recording this, and I finally looked at the word, I always thought this was the Flatron Building. like some tech company,
Sony advertising.
Yeah. Some tech company that made panels.
That's awesome.
Owned this building forever.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
I literally thought it was Flatron Building.
I think that's a better
every
name.
single time.
I mean,
yeah,
Flatiron.
Well, Flatiron works for the building
For the time, but Flatron sounds much cooler.
Maybe they'll rename it that, and you're welcome, New York.
Flatron.
But it's a cool building. It's definitely one of those buildings that exists because it had to exist.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like architecture of necessity as opposed to architecture of look what we can do.
Here's the lot. Here's the building codes. Go.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You're getting a pyramid shaped thing.
I'd like to make my money, so let's do it.
Yeah.
And then 2015 finished off with the Louvre, which is gorgeous. I think this in the micro builds, single buildings, this is my favorite.
And it's almost because the building itself, the mating of a classical style with the more modern, the whole pyramid structure they have coming out, which is really amazing in real life as well. You see it and you're like, whoa, I didn't expect that. And it's really visually, your brain is like, those are two things that I can't put together.
And yet here they are.
And yet here they are. And I think this set kind of captures that. Like, especially if you don't know the building, I think you're like, okay, that looks like an Aztec pyramid or something, plopped down in the middle of a plaza in front of oldie-timey stuff. It's cool. I like
oldie-timey stuff.
Oldie-timey. I'm speaking architectural terms.
Yeah. So maybe slow it down for the listeners here.
Yeah. Oldie-timey, defined as the period between now and before now.
I thought it was the period between old and busted and the new hotness.
The new hotness. I don't know that time period.
Oh,
that's too cool.
You've never been around that time.
It's all hot pink and teal.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of 2015. I think we can't sum that up any better than whatever words came out of your mouth there. And then they started doing their skylines. Now, as we've discussed, I have almost bought a couple of these sets. I have never bought one. The skylines might be the thing that does it for me.
Yes. I think so. I think that is where they nail it. Even my kid recently looked at skylines in the recent catalog and went, I would like to build that.
For sure.
And he's 10.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It says how good it is. He has memories of the Guggenheim.
And I think it's the fact they go micro for these. Like if you said to me, hey, make me think of Venice in 216 pieces, I don't think I would have said, yeah, no problem. I'm going to build 2 buildings and a couple bridgey things, and you will instantly know it's Venice.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
I like London, how they compressed everything in there.
Why are you getting ahead again?
Oh, sorry, Jeff.
Why you got to do this?
My apologies.
It's a very simple structure for this episode. We're going to go through chronologically.
I'm going to my favorites.
Yeah, I know.
We're going to talk about 2020. There's some really good sets coming out.
Can we finish with 2016
Well, that's
first?
okay.
Okay.
Fine. Living in the past.
Gee willikers. New York City, they had a few more pieces to work with on this one, but only $598, and it's gorgeous.
That is, yeah.
The Microfig Statue of Liberty, beautiful.
Yeah. Now, I wonder how they come, if they are thinking part count ballpark while they approach the project, or they just come up with the project and then go green light with some of these. Because I can't.
That's a good question.
I have no idea how that, like, if they had some kind of limitations, I could imagine some of these must be really hard to reduce down.
Looking at the bar counts, I think they go, we want a footprint about yay big, although I know a couple of them are bigger. Like, I think New York's a bit wider than some of the others. But they also packed the Statue of Liberty and 4 buildings in New York. and the micro of the Flatiron building, the Flatron building.
Flatron, henceforth known as. Yeah, in 598 pieces. That's astounding.
It's impressive as all get out. We skip by Berlin, and I don't know why, because it's the beautiful mix of the modern and the classic.
That is nice. I don't remember what is that tower?
I don't do buildings.
Right.
It's the tower in Berlin.
It's Berlin's Flatron.
It's Berlin's Space Needle, obviously. So those were the city skylines from 2016. The first half, it's from 2016. They also had a couple of the landmark buildings as well. Buckingham Palace. Hello.
No. Yeah, no, that nails it. It's exactly what you expect.
The fact they got the blacktop cab and the double-decker bus in there as well.
They don't have the 7,000 tourists loitering around the fountain.
No.
That's not there. Or the guy with the submachine gun out front.
Somehow it didn't make it into the Lego set,
They did not make it in.
Weird.
But no, that nails it. Yeah, I think the large courtyard thing, they nail that bit of London. Like, okay, we're just going to have a giant gravel lot here. Keep your distance,
Yeah,
please.
we want as much space as possible between you commoners and us. Thank you very much. The U.S. Capitol building, another over 1,000 piece one, 1,032 pieces.
Yeah.
And it is, it's so good you can almost see the gridlock, you know?
Oh, we're sorry. Oh, smug Canadians in there.
Yeah, because our system's perfect.
Oh, yeah. That's the thing. Just a very brief aside. Canadians often, we often do feel smug about a lot of our systems, like our healthcare and education and all that. But our systems everybody's systems is broken, just in different ways.
You just have to choose how they're going to be broken.
Yeah. So when you choose where to live in the world, you think, even Denmark or Sweden or any country whose system is hailed, it's broken.
Yeah.
It's just different broken.
It's what parts are most important for you to not be broken.
How bankrupt would I like to go when I get injured?
But anyway, the Capitol building, it looks like the Capitol building.
It's a building.
I love the use of sand green to represent the brass that's been weathered and oxidized.
That looks good.
And then we were back to Burj Khalifa again, which they'd done in the past, yes?
Yes.
And this time, it's got more parts, and it looks better. Isn't that weird how that works?
What was it the first time? It was 333, and then the first time it was
like 70?
No, 208.
208. Oh, they did so much better this time for just a third more pieces.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then more beautiful skylines.
And then more beautiful skylines. We're getting into what you wanted to talk about the whole time.
Yes. Well, this is really where, like you said before, this is where they start knocking it out of the park, I think.
These skylines are gorgeous. I saw the same catalog your son saw. I looked at these, and again, I have not bought one, but I might. Yeah. And the Sydney one, the other thing I've noticed is the price got better on a price per part. We're at 361 parts, $29.99. Technically one of the better values in the architecture series.
Huh.
And yeah, Sydney, it's got the sailboats going underneath the bridge. I actually like this Sydney Opera House better than the small build earlier.
Yeah, it's very elegant.
Very elegant. And again, even if you've never been to Sydney, if you had that on your desk and you didn't have the Sydney sign on it, people would go, oh, that's Sydney, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or that's Australia. Chicago is a town I've been to, and I love Chicago. If anyone wants to bring me out to Chicago, I will go. Just,
drop of a hat.
Yeah, it's that's a good place to be.
They've got some good architecture.
Beautiful buildings, and the bean, the good little representation. I think public art in Chicago they did a great job with. I think they should be commended on that. And also, no one shot me at any point, despite what some people would say.
Yeah, despite the news.
Yeah, but it's definitely Chicago, and that's important when you're trying to do a representation of something. But I think I think you and I both agree, and your son, that the best of the skylines is, and you're allowed to talk about it now.
Oh, okay.
London.
The embargo's off.
Yes.
Again, I haven't been to Chicago, so I can't.
You should be to Chicago.
No,
If anyone would like to fly us out to Chicago, I know they have a amazing Lego show.
Provide childcare, look after my kids for a bit, flies out to Chicago.
Yeah, we're not asking for too much.
no.
Put us up.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
We barely need a couch.
James will sleep on a couch. I need a bed. That's in my rider.
But I've been to London, and
You've seen London?
I've seen London.
You've seen France?
I've seen all kinds of underpants, mostly my own. Yeah, no, it's
You know what? I never thought of that. You are going to see more of your own underpants than anyone else's, and that doesn't seem fair a lot of the time.
that's not Lego related at all.
Sorry, I got distracted.
You're just thinking about underpants now. Like, I need some new underpants. I think the thing I was thinking is how you compress landmarks together in these kinds of sets to actually make it make sense. And London's one of those cities that when you stand by Big Ben and you look around you, you're like, oh my gosh, all the landmarks are literally within hand reach. It's such a compressed area that so many amazing landmarks. You're like, there's a landmark. Like Buckingham Palace is, you could throw a rock from, this area and hit the other area. It's just...
Yeah, you'd get in a lot of trouble if you picked up a rock.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't pick up a rock.
There's no rocks.
We're not advising any
There's
rock
no
throwing.
rocks in London. They've taken all the rocks away. It's just giant paving stones. It is a very compressed city. I would like to see a build of City Hall in there. That would be cool. But yeah, they captured a bunch of the essence of it. And that's the neat thing about trying to build a skyline of like, how do you crunch all that in?
But they do.
They do. And then they redeemed the Guggenheim.
Yeah, they upped the park count here a little bit at 744. They added some New York taxis, some traffic, which, it's not New York. It doesn't have traffic.
It kind of gives some light, like with the other one with the, adding boats or adding these little elements. It actually adds life to these sets, which when you have no play, they can seem kind of abstract and sterile. And this kind of brings it back into Lego. Yeah,
it takes the staleness away, for sure. And I would say this is a beautiful Guggenheim. If we're rating the Googs.
If we're rating the Googs, as you know them. You're on your first name basis with the Googs.
Me and the Googs go way back.
What do we head into next, sir? 2017 wraps up with a couple of interesting...
so Guggenheim we did, and then the Arc de Triomphe, which, again, beautiful French. You're welcome. That's over 8 years of French education here in Canada paying off. It's archy. I feel very triumphant when I look at it. I don't think that's an accident. There's some beautiful backwards parts in there with some jumpers going in.
And it is a grand structure. You stand underneath that, and you're like, yeah, this thing's a big...
You can't stand underneath this. This is just a Lego model. It's actually not big enough for you to stand in.
Really? You can't get your
sorry.
head? Oh.
Sorry.
386 parts, though, Jeff. I got a pretty small head.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, no, that's true. And then we move into the Lego house, which
that had to happen.
For sure.
We had to be self-referential at some point.
Yeah. Lego has made a lot of sets for their employees over the years.
Just not sharing with us.
Yeah, and they did a Lego house previous to this. But this is a much nicer Lego house, though you have to go to the Lego house to get the Lego house.
Sigh.
If anyone wants to fly us to Denmark...
I like it. And then if you've got to, if you want to follow up, say, going to the cathedral of Lego, then you have to invert it and go to Sin City afterward.
Yeah.
Because,
I think Vegas, it's going to be... this is one I haven't seen pictures of yet.
No.
But I want to. I think this is going to be a bestseller.
I feel like it will be.
I feel a lot of people will come home from Vegas with it.
Yeah.
Or they'll be... Because everyone has that one friend that goes to Vegas. And again, maybe because we're here on the West Coast. I know several people that every time they have more than 4 days off, they go to Vegas. Because you can fly to Vegas for less than a cab ride to downtown from here. So it makes it very popular.
True. And then that's going to be followed up with Shanghai, which will be the first one of these, I think, that is anything with China. And do we even have anything from India in this?
Not in the micro scale.
Taj Mahal, but like nothing in micro scale. So I feel like there's maybe half the planet we haven't covered yet, population-wise.
Definitely a lot of area for sure. Shanghai looks gorgeous. They've done some really, really nice things, which I'm excited for. The twisty, spirally building, which has a name. I don't know what the name of it is, but it has a name.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, I think, the one my son was like, oh, wow, I want to build that.
Yeah.
And I can see why.
Yeah. They did a good job making Shanghai look busy and full, which I think if you're going to do a city with that kind of population,
Yeah.
it better. If it looks sparse, there'd be a problem.
So I think despite my misgivings about Lego architecture when it started, I saw its place in the Lego oeuvre, but I wasn't a believer initially in it. I thought, well, I can see the market. I see where they're aiming this. It's not me necessarily, and it's not kids, but I think it's grown into itself, and it's spawned a lot of other stuff, and I think it's made Lego a much richer building experience, probably especially for adults, like that brings adults into the hobby, and people go, oh, yeah, like it's legitimizing almost. So it's fantastic, I think.
That is a good point. It would be interesting to see how many adult friends of Lego were created when they bought a Space Needle because they lived in Seattle and they like architecture. And then they bought another architecture building. They bought another one. And then they went online and they started building their own.
And then they said to the friends and family that came over to their house, but it's architecture. I mean, you know that building, right? Like, that's a piece of architecture. That's not, I know it's Lego, but it's architecture. It's an easy way of, kind of easing into getting back into building Lego.
It's a sophisticated interlocked brick building medium.
Absolutely. Okay. Emphasis on sophisticated.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I've enjoyed looking through this. This is that was exhaustive.
This is one of the first themes where I have not purchased any of them, but every time we look at things, I want to buy more. And there's definitely sets on here that are on my list now, which is annoying. We might have to stop doing these podcasts for that reason alone.
That's the problem.
For sure.
Well, thank you guys for joining us. If you've got any comments, questions, suggestions, visit the website and leave us a note, breakingdads.com.
Breakingdads.com?
Still breakingdads.com.
We'll get it one day.
One day. Or go yell at Jeff over on Twitter.
I'm at Still Sorting.
And until next time, I've been James.
And I'm still Jeff.